Generation Advisory. And from finding the order, I'll open it up for public comments. If anyone from the public would like to speak.
Sure.
Yeah, you got it, Pam.
Hello, Next Generation Advisory Board. I'm Pam Chadbourne, I live a block and a half from here. So first, for the boards and commissions I've been going to for this month, I'm trying to first say to everybody, thank you for your service. This is the time of year when there's a change of membership, and so it's a good time for at least one member of the public to thank you on behalf of the city and the people in it for your service. So staff as well. And so thank you very much, though, for the volunteers who don't get paid, but still come here and do this. I appreciate it. And, you know, I show that by showing up to some degree. And so thank you. Other people don't show up, but they are thankful at some point for what you do in some way. So, because they benefit from it. So thank you. So I wanted to say a few things. Oh, but first I should also say, Andrew, specifically, thank you. Because I think you're an example of what part of the original vision for Next Gen was, which is to come learn how business is done, learn some of the people, learn what else is happening in the bigger city, you know, step by step, and then go forth from there. So good luck and thank you for being a good example to the Next Gen board and living up to the expectations of the folks who created it. So I did want to say, I'm glad that Adulting 101 is on the agenda. You know, I've made some comments about this not being a business booster meeting. It's not, and it shouldn't be. But Adulting 101, I think, fits with that vision of the original idea for Next Gen. And I'd say the first 4 years or 5 years of Next Gen, they were looking for something like Adulting 101. And this almost like seems like, so those members, and there were 15 members originally, a lot of people were very interested and engaged. They would have really liked Adulting 101, I think. So good job, and I hope that does continue. You've got it on your agenda, and it seems good to me. I would like to see more connection to schools. The original Next Gen specifically said out of the 15, they were looking, they really wanted to fill so many from each level of schools in the city. And I still think that's a great objective, and we need to hear from folks in the schools. So not that you all are directly responsible, but to the degree you can advocate or speak for it. Finally, I wanted to talk about safer streets on the agenda. I think it's still an immature concept. I go to the Transportation Mobility Board meetings and council meetings, and there's a lot of talk about it, but I still don't think the city understands it well. At least it's not called Vision Zero. It's and the Transportation Mobility Board specifically did not want us to reach for an impossible goal. It's possible to be safer, and so that's what we want to try to achieve. But there's still a lot of work to do on it, and those streets must be integrated with our land use, our economic development plan, and the other parts of the city. Our management is not integrating the different products and work tasks that we're doing. That's management's job. And so I'm just going to share with you where you're not seeing a mature management process in the city right now. And hopefully you can do some stuff about that to the degree you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Public comment, we'll move on to our discussion topics. Our first topic was safer streets, Littleton update, but I'm not sure if we scheduled it a while ago with Hannah. Who's supposed to come present, and she might have forgotten. I don't know, have you heard back from her?
Yeah, she says she forgot. I'm asking her if she can make it a little bit later. So for now, you can move on to another.
Okay, yeah, I was like, we can move on to our, second we've got second topic, analyzing the details for our upcoming adulting 101 seminar. We have, these are all paper copies, if anyone wants of the flyers. I didn't realize they're gonna be quite as small. But
Yeah.
I was thinking, like I said, I don't know if everyone has seen these. And then I'm working to see if we can get digital version, or like we have a digital version, but a social media friendly version that can be easily like shared. Cause at least for me, I think that's the most avenue where I have the most reach. I'm trying to think, I was like, is there any other major things? The only other thing I was gonna kind of discuss is I know Chris, like we got support from the city for pizza and like food and stuff of like what do we actually want in terms of amount of pizzas and types of pizzas. The critical questions. Cause Chris, where was it again that we were at? It was Walter 303, right?
So
If anyone has any particular, I guess, preference or opinions on number of pizzas and type of pizzas we should have. I figured
From
like,
Walters,
yeah.
jalapeno popper pizza, that's good.
Well, I thought, just like doing quickly with the numbers was probably like 8 pizzas, of which I would think we'd want 5 or 6 to be relatively like mild with like either pepperoni or cheese, and then if we wanna choose like supreme or other things for the last 2 or 3 to run a little crazy. Yeah. Is there anything we need to do on the side of Kiln or Home is Yours for this?
Kaki's talked to Kiln, I can drop off some of these flyers. at Kiln as well, so we should be all set there. Home is Yours, they have a presentation ready to go. So, no.
Okay. Is there anything else anyone has for that? Cause I feel like we've kind of hammered out all the details and everything. I guess a good question I would ask for us is, what time do you think we all should get there? Cause I know we're starting at 5, like, do you think 4:45, 4:50 is enough time or?
Kaki and I and Home is Yours will probably get there closer to like 4:15, 4:30.
Okay,
So it's up to y'all, but make sure that they're able to set up their presentation, get hooked up.
that makes sense.
It's running smoothly. So,
And I was like, I can be there at 4:30, but I'll probably need to go pick up the pizza closer to 4:45.
fine.
Check in and then, yeah. Oh, and is there, I know we had talked about this, are we planning to put a slide in the Home is Yours presentation, just explaining what the NJB is? Do we still want to do that?
If you want to, like I said, they already have like their whole presentation, so we can ask them to add it, but I know.
Okay, that's what I think we could just do, like a slide at the beginning, be like, hey, this is who we are, this is why we're putting this on, and then just let them take over. And then the next, does anyone else have any things they wanna comment or discuss? The adulting 101 first time home buying? Are there any other topics or items you wanna cover?
Is this gonna, like, is there gonna be an e-blast? Is there gonna be like anything in like the newspapers, or is it just how dependent are we on these flyers? And like social media and stuff like
I
that.
think that's mainly our most, our really only avenue at the moment for this particular event, because there was some discussion that had to happen within some of the city staff leadership that kind of kicked the can down the road a couple weeks, so a lot of deadlines that we were trying to hit were not made. But we do have, like, we have these, and I'm working on getting a social media friendly version that we could share. But unfortunately, I was like, that is kind of where we're at the moment. We do have a bunch more of these if people need or want. But yeah, I was like, if that's the last thing, it was like, we can move to the next topic on the agenda, which is, looking forward to the next Adulting 101 seminar of what folks' thoughts are with that, and like kind of trying to put a date on the schedule sooner rather than later, because I know summer's right around the corner and it's gonna get busy full really quickly. So my thought was to try and find a time, because I know the goal was like ideally like once a quarter to have one of these, to see where where we could have the Littleton Business Chamber come and talk about like what it takes to start a business and like being an entrepreneur in Littleton. And I didn't have any particular dates in mind, but I know the person that Corey from the LBC or from the Littleton Business Chamber recommended. She's moving her daughter into college at the end of summer, so probably the very latest June, maybe July, if you wanted to push it early Q3. Does anyone have any particular dates that they do or don't want to do, and are people okay with that topic? And I also realize I'm not going to be here, so I don't want to be the one pushing or driving it too much if it doesn't work for y'all as the members who will be moving forward.
I think topic wise, it's still timely and relevant, right?
Okay.
I don't think that's something that is gonna disappear.
Yeah.
So I think that's fine going forward with the Littleton Business Chamber kind of presenting and sharing their knowledge on what that takes and what that looks like in Littleton. Time wise, you know, I think July is challenging because I think that's kind of peak travel season for a lot of people. I think really anytime over summer, so I think we should look at either you know, mid-June or mid-August and kind of have that large swing. You know, just because we're either gonna get people on the beginning of their holiday season or tail end of it. Hopefully, I think, when did you say she was moving her, the beginning of August or?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
but I know it was, I think, a college in the Northeast, so
Okay,
it's,
travel.
yeah, it's a travel required.
I don't know, some thoughts?
Nothing more with Andrew, so I echo what you said. It's a good relevant topic.
I agree.
Some other ones.
Yeah.
Only thing about August is that's Western Welcome Week.
Yeah,
So
like
we
that's
have
a,
a lot going on
I would
mid-August.
think June might be easier.
Yep. And that allows us to maybe have some time as we get to know new members. And kind of develop what the next iteration that looks like, so, yeah, let's target, mid-June, and then I take it from there as the two of you step back.
Okay, yeah. And I can start an email communication, because I already had one going with Corey about like planning that, just to bring the people who I know are gonna be around in the mix and be like, hey, this is what folks are thinking, here are some people you can reach out to, just so you don't necessarily have to put a definitive date on the calendar, but you can pencil something in, so she knows, y'all know, and hopefully this time with the city, you can actually get it out in the Littleton report and social media and other things that were not really accessible to us this time.
We're all learning.
Yep. Gotta do, take it one step at a time. Are there any other thoughts, comments, things people want to discuss? Looking forward to the next Adulting 101 seminar.
I kind of have a random question.
Yeah.
There are several Littleton related social accounts. Is Littleton Gov the only one affiliated with the city?
No, because I think Visit Littleton is also associated with the city, although that's really tourism. Not that I'm on social media all the time, but yeah, Littleton Gov is one of them.
Littleton's definitely one that is become really active recently. I don't know, I'm just brainstorming to other possible pages that could be added to. Visit Littleton's probably not the right one, but.
Yeah. The other, I mean, Vibrant Littleton also posts a lot,
Yeah.
but I'm not a member, so I can't get reposted.
There wouldn't
I
be
could
any-
actually probably get them to share this. 'Cause I know I'm involved with them and know a lot of them on their board.
I think that's a good, there's no issues with us reaching out to any of those other
No.
entities, share.
Yeah, and I was like, that's a good, I didn't even think about that, but they have a pretty big reach too. I can definitely. That was a good point, Lauren. And then kind of move into our last discussion topic is just more of transition to the next iteration of the NGAB, like the next board. I first just wanted to say that like, I'm not gonna disappear. If you need anything, you can email me, text me, more than glad to help you out, like, especially the first couple months to get everything rolling. And then I also wanted to take some time to think like, what is y'all's vision? And really what I'd recommend is like, what topics do you wanna cover the first maybe month or two, just so you kind of have things ready to rock and roll when new people come, cause there is a little bit of sometimes that awestruckness and almost seems a little dazed of getting adjusted to what it means to be on like a board like this. And if you have like, here's our agenda, here's the topics, something more structured, it's a lot easier for people to jump in and feel less overwhelmed. And that's what I was gonna ask, like, is there any topics or things y'all particularly wanna talk about that either me or Chris could help the city set up to like have ready for y'all, presentation or just content wise?
So thinking back to a year ago when we joined, I think, I think it'd be helpful to have, good detail about, continuing, what does this board do,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I know everyone has already kind of gone through the interview process, expressed their interests, but now that you're here, right, what's that look like?
Yeah.
And so, kind of sharing some historical knowledge about how long it's been around, what we've done in the past. And then I think a big thing too would be talking about kind of like, what are the expectations of everyone sitting at this table, right? So, how do we equally share voice? How do we share ideas? And then, something that I think this particular group did really well, kind of in the tail end of things is we got really structured on like, all right, this is gonna be our agenda for next time.
Yeah.
This is what we're gonna talk about. This is where we can kind of speak up. And so setting that kind of right up front, the new group will always leave with next month's agenda. We'll have action items and we'll, kind of pass the baton like we've been doing of like,
Yeah.
all right, Mackenzie, you're gonna kind of take the lead on this and, and then next month it'll be Ricky who takes, just have that kind of really kind of camaraderie around one another and supporting each other. Which I think will make a big difference, but just continuing our vision. I think we're finally in a good groove of what we're trying to achieve and bringing that new idea and, see where their perspectives lie.
Yeah, I like that. With that being said, and the idea of structure, is there topics you want for us to queue up? Cause I imagine is Colleen gonna be doing her, Chris, if Colleen's gonna be doing her little introduction and talk about our responsibilities as a board and all that.
I'd anticipate that you would.
Okay.
That would be the first go.
Yeah.
That's a standard feature for all the boards, meetings with their new rosters.
I think, another thing that could be kind of beneficial with new folks coming in is, spending a little bit more time about, who else supports, our group, right? So looking at the three of you here, right, it'd be great to, have more opportunity to for folks to hear your voice and, you know, kind of what your passions and how we can interact with you a little bit more. I think opening up that door will help, you know, kind of get that receptive feedback of brainstorming and good communication around this. So I think that'd be awesome to see either in, you know, the second month or where that looks like too, right? Cause that kind of helps guide us a little bit and where we can tap into knowledge and ask questions and, of course, that's an opportunity as well. Yeah, so prepare a slide deck.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a good idea. I was like, you could probably, if you wanted to, if they were comfortable with that, roll it after the first meeting of like, here's all the overwhelming rules and responsibilities and like information, and be like, here's the people here to support you, and bring it down to a human level.
Yeah.
And just, if you guys wanted to do like one slide, each of you with like a fun photo and a couple cool facts or information. just-
Sorry, I don't have any fun photos.
You don't have fun around here.
Wow.
But just something to kind of like really explain a little bit more in depth who you are, to make it less seem like you're, oh, ominous city employee, but like, oh, this is Dennis and these are all cool things about him. I think that'd be cool.
What do you think we can do? Anything else?
I think just like getting to the meat of issues that we want to address faster,
Yeah.
honestly. Cause I feel like we spent half a year just kind of trying to figure
Yeah.
a direction out, or like really not contributing a lot, honestly, in my opinion. So I think if we can like jumpstart that earlier, we should.
Yeah.
So I guess my question would, for you guys would be like, what are the big things that Littleton is focusing on in this coming year? And getting those people in front of us so that that's something that we can actually like consult on and build opinions around, because as stuff's happening, that's when we need to be involved, right? Not, like, we're always like
Yeah, we're always a little bit
a
behind.
little bit behind. So I think for me, that's what needs to happen for this board to actually be very useful.
Do you think that would be in like month 2 after we play the get to know you? And then we jump into like, here are the big issues that are front and center.
Yeah, or maybe even month 1, like, this is what's happening in Littleton this year.
Yeah.
What do you guys think we should be like focusing on? Cause otherwise the second meeting is
Yeah, then it's.
already wasted. Yeah, it just, it goes pretty quickly.
I'm trying to respond to your, well, we could get the city manager to come and say, these are the things that we're working on, and go over there's an agenda for the council meetings that's kind of already been set, and, you know, future.
To do a catch up, because I believe we had him for a meeting, but I forgot when it was or what the topic was.
That was, I
Yeah.
believe, was it October or November for the budget?
Yeah,
But given how much big the change is for this group.
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
will ask.
and there's no reason we couldn't, especially for new members, any sort of orientation, like structural orientation, procedural orientation. There's not much reason that couldn't happen in advance of the first meeting. I know, our clerk is gonna wanna go through some things for the whole group, but there's no reason that we couldn't do a bit of on-ramping with incoming members to kind of get them up to speed.
And what I would recommend, what I pulled up is there's a tentative city council calendar, and you can look at topics upcoming. They're discussing. There's one that I think might be worth like laying perspective on, is having a discussion on the upcoming project for the Santa Fe Drive / Mineral Avenue improvement, that intersection, and see if they could come present here and give a thought to the public, give y'all's thoughts before it goes to council. Cause I know that's something that's gonna be a big impact to the city. We're also doing, this is more South Suburban Parks and Rec, but they're revising the Powers Park site plan.
Well, but actually, we are also, for the first time since 1983, that's when I graduated from high school, updating our contractual agreement with South Suburban.
Yes.
And that's why we did the root and remove.
I definitely think that's something, to weigh in on, especially I know, at least at the last city council meeting, there's a lot of people that are very opinionated on the parks and the green space in Littleton. Cause Littleton owns most of it, but we actually don't keep or manage a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity that we could probably reference that pretty regularly. It's like almost an action item or an agenda that we can pull up. This is what's coming.
Yeah. I think that's like the way to move forward.
Yeah.
Like that.
I think it's wise for y'all to have that second event kind of just tentatively planned, framework scheduled that way, like, cause from experience, people come in new and they're looking to y'all for like what to do, and it takes a few meetings for them to start to get their own voice and opinion, so I think having something that they can already anchor to will be helpful, it'll be more North Star for them. So I don't think there's anything wrong in just kind of even getting something laid out and just like, hey, this is what we're doing. So it gives them something to kind of, look forward to, and then they'll have input as we move forward through those different events.
Yeah, I like that. And that might even be a good opportunity in our next meeting to just take some time and talk about, the success and launch of this event and what that looks like, and then jump into the second. If you are kind of up to speed on what's the final product look like, and then we're gonna take it.
So is there a way that we could email this out to the new members too? I actually know one person, so I texted it to him. Encouraged him to come that way. They can like meet some of you and
Yeah.
get the ball rolling a little sooner.
Yeah, I was like, we have a digital version, but it's all one big sheet, so it's both sides on the same. I'm working on being able to edit it. But once I get it down, so I imagine we'll just want this sheet as like a send outable, I can email that out.
Yeah, if we have that list.
Yeah. And I'm sure I can get Colleen, the city clerk, to forward that to that upcoming members.
Either that, or we might be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good preview, right? So you have to feel what am I wanting people to see.
Sweet. What was I thinking? Other thoughts, or not other thoughts, but to kind of recollect and make sure I kind of want to set y'all up on the best foot. What do you guys want to do the transition stuff on the first meeting, or do you want me to work with Colleen to set up a date before then so that y'all can all be onboarded and do the whole, I don't have to break Colorado open meeting laws and all that fun mess beforehand, so you can hit the ground running, or what do you two want? I want to make sure, like I said, setting you guys up for success the best way possible.
Yeah. My only thought is it might be tough to organize. I can see us saying, yeah, let's do it in advance, and then not being
Yeah.
organized enough to actually do so.
So if you have more than a quorum of the board together, that constitutes an open meeting anyway.
Yeah.
So there are some pieces of sort of training and orientation that probably would make more sense to happen in the first meeting. Some sort of context or educational document or info that we can pass along to incoming members ahead of that, so they have a bit of sense before they show up, in addition to if they can make this.
Yeah, I like that approach, because then they can kind of review it on their own, and then it operates for this space to be, overwhelmed with things you can and can't do, and
Yeah.
I think it's a nice reminder.
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
it yearly, just to kind of remind myself what the rules were.
Totally. No, I agree. I think it's a great opportunity to do that, and then also, dedicate more time to the meet and greet. That's a key element for this group coming in.
That makes sense. Are there topics you guys want on? I know we kind of talked about a couple things, but are any of them that you want to make sure that we have on the agenda for y'all? Besides like just the meet and greet and the do's and don'ts.
In other words, what would have been helpful to know in the first meeting?
I'm trying to think back now, what would have been helpful?
I think just going through the Littleton calendar, honestly, so people can start thinking. like these are the issues we're gonna be dealing with.
Maybe just that reminder that it's all on the Littleton website, so they can see what council's in the pipeline, they can see what they've done at their last meetings, the agendas are there, and these are up there, so just an education on that might be helpful.
Yeah. I think like what we did earlier, just if you can pull it up and talk through a lot of things, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to discuss? I think that's a great way to get everyone engaged and not just be like, here's a list of all the topics, but like actually look at the timelines associated with like, oh, is this being presented in April or May or June? Like what is the relative, I guess, turnaround time, so to speak, or level of quickness you need to weigh in on that.
Is Kenna coming or we?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, it's, she says she's getting ready, so I'm gonna try and zoom her in
Oh, okay.
real soon. So maybe some 5 or so minutes? Yeah.
So, tentative agenda, we have kind of the onboarding, which incorporates the meet and greet, the Littleton calendar review, kind of a resource overview of where you can go on the website to find
Yeah.
things to become aware. And then I think the last one would be good. And developing 101 to set the expectation.
All right. Can you run that all back? Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm gonna write it down.
I have it
'cause
typed down, so, yeah, so, onboarding meet and greet. The Littleton calendar, and I'm gonna review some topics. I'll also do a live demonstration of resources on the website, so I'll
Okay.
look to Chris to do that. And then, have an adulting 101 introduction review.
Okay.
And then I think just as a regular practice, the last agenda item will be setting the agenda for meeting number 2.
What were the 2 middle?
I said them in different orders than I typed them. But Littleton calendar review, and then a website resource review led by you.
A website resource.
So that way you probably know more on where I should click it.
All those in .gov?
Yep.
Okay, nice.
I think we can drive that group there. Really kind of get integrated into things that are happening, and that's a huge avenue for us.
Cool.
I can pass that along to, because I have to, normally I send out to Colleen every month, the agenda, and I'll send that to her and be like, here's the things that the board wants to include in the agenda for next month, in addition to the onboarding, like, I'll send her all of it.
Thank you.
Nope. Can I give us a timeline, or are we just gonna?
Her Zoom is updating, so she'll be on shortly.
Okay.
Well, it's just the way things work.
It's, technology.
So what do we think is gonna be in the background? Do you think a cat will make an appearance? She's zooming from home. A dog will bark in the.
I feel like a cat, I could see a cat.
I have dogs. They appear in my Zoom meetings a lot.
I'm gonna go cat.
Okay.
Cat that walks over.
My boss who lives in Centennial, his cat, is there all the time. And then I went and visited him, and the cat, it's just him and the cat rattling around the house, and his cat's become very protective.
Kenna, do you have a cat over there with you?
Not in this room, but somewhere.
We were hoping for an appearance.
Oh, I could try to find them.
Just leave your door open and they'll walk across the front, I guarantee, before.
Yeah, that's true. Hi all. Thank you for being flexible with me. I apologize. I'm so sorry I'm not there in person.
That's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you for being accommodating for us and a quick turnaround time this evening to present.
Yeah. I'm not sure if any of you were able to watch the city council presentation from February 25th.
I was, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I figured I could just quickly step through. I won't go through the whole presentation, but just step through kind of what we presented to council, which was our big update for Safer Streets Littleton and what our plan for 2025 is. And then answer any questions. So I will share my screen. All right. And I think I came to this group, I'm not sure what time last year, but we were just getting started, I think, with the Safer Streets Littleton program. We've definitely matured this program over the last year. And really, tried some things last year, figured out what worked, what didn't work, and have a really clear plan moving forward. So like I said, I won't, go into detail on every single slide, since our council presentation, I think, took over an hour. I don't want to keep you there that long. But I'll just hit on the highlights. Ongoing projects, these are just things outside of Safer Streets Littleton that our transportation team is working on. So we have a lot of different grant funded projects in different phases, either planning, design, or construction. A lot of this work we've been working on for the last 5 to 7 years. And so a lot of the projects have gone from that planning and design phase into construction. So you will be seeing a lot of construction around Littleton this year. We're putting a lot of things in the ground, a lot of things along Mineral, in Santa Fe, Prince, as well as all over the city. So be on the lookout for that. Some of the innovative things that are coming as part of both Safer Streets and those other projects, the large quadrant road project at Santa Fe and Mineral will remove left turns, and this is going to help with congestion. And as part of that project and development around Santa Fe and Mineral, we're going to be putting in the city's first cycle track. And there's an example on the screen. And so that is a separated bike facility that is on the same curb level as pedestrians, but pedestrians will have their, dedicated sidewalk. And then the cycle track will be for cyclists, but it'll be off the roadway. So it's a much safer facility than like on-street bike lanes. We have lots of things on this list, as you can see, of different safety and multimodal improvements coming to the city as well. We did start a strategic plan for Safer Streets, and I won't go too far into this, but as part of Safer Streets, we really wanted to define a clear vision and mission statement. So our vision for the program is to reimagine Littleton streets as safe, connected, people-first places. So this is really the ethos that we're bringing forward for this program to implement. And then as part of that, we have 4 specific goals. So people first streets is really that infrastructure portion. Culture change is really about how do we get that culture shift and behavior shift of how people are looking at our roadways, drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists. A lot of the things that we're trying to accomplish in this program are really dependent on that culture change piece. Data-driven decision making, we try to make all of our decisions based off of data, public input being a very important piece of data that we look at, as well as speeds and volumes, crashes, a lot of other quantitative data along with that qualitative. And then collaboration and resources. This program is really built around the idea that it's not just one group or one person who can implement this work. It really has to be a team, and it can't just be a public works team. It has to be communications and police and Littleton Public Schools, our trails and everything in order to get this work done. So these are our main goals that we're trying to accomplish in 2025. Our first goal, which is people first streets. A couple of the items as part of the People First Streets goal is our neighborhood traffic calming program. So this is a place where residents can put in requests for traffic calming on their streets. We are going to revamp this program this year. So it still exists now. You can still put in a request if you have a traffic calming issue on your street. But we'll be revamping it to hopefully make it a little better, both public facing, providing more data, as well as for internal management. So that'll be coming later this year. We have an ongoing traffic calming evaluation that started last year, and so that will be wrapping up this month. And as part of that traffic calming evaluation, we looked at all of the different traffic calming features we currently have in the city of Littleton and evaluating, are those still the best practice? Is it still getting us the same results that we want when they were installed? So, we have traffic calming from like 30 plus years ago. So it was time to look at that and see if there's updates. And then we're also getting a toolbox moving forward with some designs, some engineering designs that we can implement moving forward. And then we had the consultant look at some location specific areas too, just so that we could see how we could actually apply that toolbox in the real world as well. So that will be published in the coming month online. And we'll do some press releases on like the Littleton Report, social media as well. LPS and Safe Routes to School. This LPS is a very important partner for us, and we've worked really closely with them. So a couple major things. We have our Euclid Avenue reconstruction project. So this will be reconstructing the roadway between Elodie and Broadway. Phase 1 will start this summer. And that will be from Elodie to Cherokee. And then phase 2 will happen, we think, sometime in the fall or early next year. As part of that design, it's going to be a more of a complete street type of design, which means that we're trying to accommodate all modes and make it as safe as possible, regardless of what mode that you're using on the roadway. So we have a nice shared use path on the north side that can be used both by pedestrians and bicyclists. We're widening the sidewalk on the south side to be ADA compliant. We're adding some raised pedestrian crossings where there's existing mid-block crossings for the school. We're adding some curb extensions, which help narrow the crossing distance for pedestrians across intersections. And then also adding some different traffic calming. And then we worked very closely with Euclid Middle School to make sure that this design works with their on-site circulation for pickup and drop-off. Euclid and Runyon Elementary are actually going to be under construction this summer, and they're doing some bond projects to redo the parking lots at both schools as well. So we've been involved in that. We have our school route wayfinding, which are those blue signs you've probably seen all over Littleton. The first iteration of that was installed last year. That covered 8 schools within Littleton, and so we're going to expand it to 2 more schools this year. And then we have our school zone safety evaluation, which really looked at the school zones at each of the schools in Littleton, what safety improvements and consistency improvements we can make around those school zones. And that was really looking at signage and the school flashers. It didn't necessarily address the broader safety issues of how students get to and from school. We're trying to accomplish that through a couple other projects. But this was focused specifically on the school zones and signage and regulation around those. And then we have our pilot and quick build projects. And I think last time I was at Next Gen, we talked a lot about these. So we have a new iteration this year. We have some protected bike lanes that were started the planning and design process last year, but they'll actually get installed this year. So that includes Bellevue, Windermere, Pennsylvania, and Phillips. And then we'll be adding 2 more along Irving and Church Avenue. And so these will be, on-street bike lanes with protection and a buffer from ongoing, from vehicular traffic, excuse me. And then we are going to have a couple crossing and intersection improvements. So a couple at the Highline Canal crossings. We're going to be revisiting 2 at Lee Gulch, Windermere and Prince. We'll be working with Runyon Elementary to do some parking daylighting. That just means like pulling parking back away from some of their crosswalks so there's more visibility for pedestrians. Ridge and Apache is a location that's been on our radar for a couple of years, and we've gotten a lot of neighborhood traffic calming requests, so we're going to do some interventions there. And then before we install the full protected bike lane on Windermere, we're going to pilot a protected bicycle intersection at Windermere and Bellevue. So that's really to help the safety of bicyclists getting through that intersection. And then the protected bike lane will follow in a couple months from there. Another important note is that with all of our pilot projects, it's a very iterative process. So, these locations come from either neighborhood traffic calming requests or locations that we at the city have been monitoring, either based off of safety concerns from crashes or high speeding areas, or it's a more pedestrian used area like a trail crossing or near a school. And with these pilots, we really are trying out different interventions. And so part of that process is evaluating data, seeing if the intervention actually did make it safer. Are we seeing speeds decrease? Is there a reduction in crashes? And then the other piece of that is we have a pilot project survey. And so we're also trying to get that community input. So how does the community feel about this? Do they feel safer? Do they feel like it's working? What concerns do they have? And so we're using all of that feedback and reevaluating our existing pilots this year as well. One of the big concerns I think we've heard from the public specifically is the use of like those white delineators and posts, and just that there's a lot of visual clutter. So we're looking at some different materials to potentially use instead of those posts. The idea of these pilots is that we're really trying different ideas and materials. And then, once we feel comfortable and we get down to the safety benefits that we're really striving for, we'll look to make a more permanent improvement at those locations. The benefit of using more quick build materials is just the cost as well. Doing anything with our delineators or temporary curb is just much more cost effective, both with the price of the material and then the installation. For when you go to a full permanent installation, you have to do a more detailed design, think about things like drainage, utilities, all of that. So there's just a lot that goes into all of this. Here are some of the examples of what types of materials we'll be using for our protected bike lanes. So for our first protected bike lanes, we wanted to try a variety of materials, again, to see what works and what doesn't work. And then, once we kind of figure out what is the best material for the city, we'll move forward with that on future corridors. Excuse me. So we've joked that we're building the Littleton Zoo. A lot of these materials have animal names, which is funny. So we have orcas on the left, which is a type of curbing materials with delineators. We have the zebras next, which are more of those dome shape curbs. Then we'll have rubber parking stops and delineators, sure curb, which is a type of temporary curb. And then really exciting, the safety lane divider on the left, or on the right, excuse me, is actually a company based in Littleton, and they're going to donate some of this curbing for us. And so we're going to test this out on Church Street, or Church Ave. And it's designed in Littleton, which is awesome to support a local company. So we're really excited, and it's a more robust like jersey type barrier. Boulder recently installed these last year, so we're excited to try this new material out. And then our Lottie corridor study. So we actually just kicked this off. We're going to be looking at a Lottie from the Highline Canal all the way to Littleton Boulevard area. And this really came out of the need of looking at our corridors more holistically. So like I mentioned with the school zone safety evaluation, we're really looking specifically right near schools, not really looking at how kids are getting to and from school from a wider context. So these corridor studies are really where we're going to be doing that work. And so we're starting with a Lottie. There's 2 schools on a Lottie. It's where we had a fatal crash 2 years ago. And so we're really excited. It's going to be very rooted in community engagement. And so we're going to start community engagement from the beginning. Really get the residents who live on a Lottie involved. The one thing to note is that we just have money for studying the corridor right now. We don't necessarily have construction funding. And so that is something that we are looking at trying to figure out how to implement. The cost for these large corridor improvements is just a lot of money. So here we have an estimate of 7.5 million just to install ADA compliant sidewalks. So that'd be like 5-foot sidewalks, compliant ramps along 2.5 miles. So that doesn't include any type of bicycle facility or other traffic calming features. So infrastructure just costs a lot, unfortunately. And so that's one of our jobs, is to figure out how we can actually fund improvements in the future. And then speaking of our corridor and design studies, we have a grand plan to study not just a Lottie, but 10 other corridors as well. And so we've applied for a couple federal grants. We unfortunately did not get one, but we just put in an application for another one, and we'll hear back this summer. And the idea is that we want to look at the bike network, multimodal network, more holistically from that network level, while also then getting into the details of each specific corridor. We are looking at, if we can't get federal money, how can we maybe look at these corridors more incrementally, and using the local match that we've already set aside to do 1 or 2 of these per year. And so again, we're trying to be creative of how to extend our funding and get this work done as well. So. And then, as always, maintenance and field operations is something we have to think about in our work. So, with all these pilot projects and other infrastructure improvements, how are we going to be able to plow them in the winter, sweep them? We have sweeping requirements as part of our water quality agreement with the state. So we have to uphold our sweeping requirements, plowing, obviously, how to make these, usable year round. I think one of the big lessons learned this last year was that some of our pilots, the first time it snowed, the snow plows were taking out some of our delineators. And so that was a good lesson for us to go, okay, how do we run? There's a program called Auto Turn where you can run different vehicles of like, okay, we need to run that through our designs, make sure that plows won't be hitting them, working very closely with our field staff to make sure that they have a say in it as well, and that we're, creating the most safety while also balancing the maintenance needs as well. Our second goal, culture change. So this is really about, how are we bringing safety to top of mind, and how is it not just something you think about when something tragic happens, but something that we think about in our everyday life as we move around the city. So we have a whole list of events for this year. And so we've already had 2. Our next one will be Bike and Roll to School Day in May. We'll be doing a big Bike to Work Day event, some commuter challenges. We'll be doing a bike rodeo at the Twilight Criterium. So a bike rodeo is really kind of a learn to ride type scenario, or, there's an obstacle course, and it's really geared towards students and kids, but should be a fun way to engage people in riding their bike. Our traffic garden, I'll talk a little bit about that at the next slide. So yeah, we're really just trying to engage the community throughout the year, and talk about safety and talk about the work we're doing. So on the training and educational opportunities, these Safer Street practice parks, which are both pictured here as examples, are like a permanent bike rodeo or learn to ride area. And so we're actually going to be implementing 2 of them this year. We actually just found out we got a grant to help fund them. So it's supposed to simulate, a typical roadway with different features, like a roundabout and stop signs. And it's really a way to teach kids, how to ride their bike out in the real world in a safe, confined environment. So we're really excited for that. And we'll have like a ribbon cutting for when they're open this summer. And then we're also working with LPS to help implement some safety curriculum in their high schools. Specifically, this Choose Safe program is about safe driving. And then eventually we'd love to expand that to all levels of school and really talk about safe bike riding and how to be a good pedestrian and think about safety from a very young age. And then, yeah, and I'm sorry, you guys can please ask questions throughout. I should have said that at the beginning.
You said the city is going to be installing 2 of the bike gardens. Do you know the locations of where they're going to be in the city?
Yes. So one will be at Powell Middle School, and then the other one will be at East Community Center.
Okay.
We had originally thought Goddard would be a good location, and we're still working on that as a potential future traffic garden, or practice parks as we're calling them here. So we'll see if that's one in the future to get something more on the west side of Littleton. But yeah, East Community Center and Powell are the ones that will be installed this year.
Goddard's at the top of a hill. It's hard to get up there with your bike.
It is hard to get up there. These have lots of space though.
They have
Which
a
is
lot
nice.
of space and a great view. I can't believe
Yeah.
somebody gave that land to the LPS. That was crazy.
Yeah. And then our communication strategy. So we're really just trying to be very public with all the work we're doing, and then also do some more like public service campaigns around safety. David from our communications office is going to be doing a more conversational, testimonial, social media campaign called Word on the Street, where he will be interviewing different people around Littleton, talking about how they use our streets and, you know, things about safety, or, what biking means to them, or just, their kind of point of view of living on Littleton streets, or, using Littleton streets, I should say. So yeah, we're also working on we have a website, but we'll be updating it. We'll be sending out some postcards to residents for these future installments of infrastructure. So hopefully you guys will be hearing about us and Safer Streets a lot this year. Our next goal, data-driven decision making. So we collect a lot of different data. As I mentioned, we try to be very robust in the data we collect. So a lot of this is like, vehicular volume, speed, size, bike and ped counts, crashes, public feedback. And then we also go in the field and just observe, like, what are we seeing? What behaviors are we watching? And we really use this to be equitable and help prioritize locations, help determine the right solutions. And then, that's all a feedback loop to hopefully get some permanent installations. I won't go into too much detail here, but this is just an example of how we're looking at some of our pilot projects, how speed has maybe changed since we've installed the pilot, and then what kind of feedback we're getting from the survey. And so, like I said, we'll be using this to evaluate our current pilot projects and make some adjustments this year based off of this data. We've heard a lot of different things from the pilot project survey. A lot of people like them, especially around schools. People feel like they have to be more careful driving through them. Others really would rather have a permanent solution rather than the plastic curbs. They think it's distracting. So again, we're taking all this feedback in and helping inform our projects moving forward. Speed feedback signs, we installed these last year. So these are the ones that will tell you your speed after you drive by them. We installed 15 of them, and they're constantly collecting data. So this is just another data source for us as well. Our crash reports, we're building out a more extensive crash report this year, which will help us also prioritize locations or figure out what areas we need to be focused more on. And so there's just a more rigorous analysis going on. Our top intersections, and Safer Streets is really focused on more of those local and collector roadways, more like neighborhood roadways. You can see from like the top intersections though that it's along a lot of our more arterial streets that we call our larger streets, like a Broadway, Santa Fe, Prince and Alamo downtown, Littleton Boulevard. So we're also still, looking at what improvements can be made along those large corridors as well. One thing to note that I think is an important statistic is just that, like half of the bike and ped crashes result in either an injury or a killed or serious injury. And so while they may not be the majority of crashes that we see across the city, they're more severe and have, more severe outcomes for the bicyclists and pedestrians. So just something to note here. Police enforcement. So police did very targeted school zone enforcement last year. That was an overtime opportunity that has since ended, but LPD is looking at how to bring that back. I think there's going to be more conversations with council coming out of our city council meeting of how to get PD more involved in this work as well. And then our last goal, thank you all for hanging around with me, is collaboration and resources. So I think I mentioned this before, but collaboration with our partners is just a big part of this work. You know, it can't be done in a vacuum. And so these are just a couple of the partners we work very closely with. It does not capture everyone. So our Transportation Mobility Board, they're very involved in this work and have really taken it on. Our Traffic Safety Committee is a group of internal stakeholders that meets bi-weekly. And so it's folks from Public Works, Communications, PD, City Manager's Office, and we just talk about different safety issues, you know, resident complaints, or if PD is seeing some trends or a very specific area. Today, we actually went out to Bowles in Santa Fe. There was a fatal crash there last month or in January, and so we did a site visit and really looked at, okay, like, you know, what happened? Are there certain quick wins we could do here to make it safer? What's our long-term goal? Yeah, so that group meets bi-weekly. Littleton Public Schools, which I've mentioned, is a super critical partner. We're very involved in both. They're involved in our projects, we're involved in their projects, and then just ongoing coordination and programming in the schools. And so we meet with them monthly. And then Advent Health is a new partner we have this year. And so we're going to be working with them with those practice parks, or traffic gardens, as they're also called. They might be potentially donating some swag or some helmets for us. And so we're really excited to work with them. Like I said, this list is not exhaustive. You know, we work with South Suburban Parks and Rec, and lots of other departments and whatnot. So overall funding, I don't know how much you all want to get into the details of this, but last year we were allocated about 2.3 million. We were able to spend 1.4 of that, but we have allocated the rest of that money to be spent in 2024. And then this year we were allocated $1 million in the budget. And so half of that will be going to our pilot and quick builds. Another portion of that will be set aside for those corridor studies if we're awarded that federal grant that we applied for. And then we just have some consultant support, the events and educational programming. We'll be funding an intern through this work, and then some of our data software. And then next step. So we have our transportation master plan, which really oversees the whole transportation program. So Safer Streets is just one component of that. Our first transportation master plan was published in 2019. And so we are up for an update, and that will occur in 2026. And so a lot of this work from Safer Streets will be integrated into the TMP. We're really looking forward to that. And the Transportation Mobility Board is doing a lot of work on helping us get ready for that TMP update, which is great. And then this is just, a little bit of an overview of what I talked about. So we have, 22 different ongoing projects. We're really focusing on that data-driven decision-making. We'll have 15 pilot and quick build projects, 10 plus events, lots of communications, and then that TMP that I talked about. So that is my main overview. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me or want me to go more in depth on anything in particular.
Are the 22 projects all going to be permanent installations?
Yeah, I believe these 22 projects are like the ones outside of the Safer Streets. And so those are those like planning, design, or construction projects. So 8 of those will be constructed this year.
Okay. And then my other question is, obviously safety is the priority, but is there any concern or focus on making it also look nice and design while you're
Yeah,
in these permanent
yeah.
solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. That, I think that has been a common theme in the public feedback we've heard through our strategic planning effort. We did stakeholder interviews with 7 different groups, and that topic came up as well. And so we really are trying to incorporate that in our pilot projects moving forward, and then looking to make those pilots permanent, which I think will be more appeasing to the public, because it'll be more, concrete, pattern concrete. If it's like a curb extension, bike lanes, we have to still figure out what the best material is. But yeah, we're incorporating that feedback, and trying to make it better, and make everyone happy.
A follow-up to that, are there any like pilot projects from 2024 that are being turned permanent in 2025 or not yet?
Yeah, not yet. We are still testing a lot of, like, we didn't get to the speed reduction that we were hoping for. So we haven't planned for any this year. I definitely think that is something we want to focus on next year. We also want to time improvements when it makes sense, like when our pavement management comes in. And so that's something that this program has to align with our pavement management. And so looking at what corridors are on their list, and so that we can save time and money doing it as one project together.
On your outlined budget for FY 25, you had about 63,000 for consulting support. What are you to get out of from a consultant?
Yeah, and sorry, I'm gonna plug in my laptop real quick before it dies.
We spend a lot of money as a city on consultants. It feels like we do, every time we do a new plan, we have a consultant comes in, whether it's route review or order plan. So I think the city, the theory I have is that the city has people who do operations, but if there's any kind of special task, consultants get hired.
Yeah, and it's not to say that the city staff doesn't necessarily have the expertise to do it. A lot of time it's just time. We're managing a lot of projects, and so the consultants are really the ones doing more of that technical analysis, but we're obviously still involved throughout the entire project, managing it, directing it. But they are the ones that can, like, dive really deep into data, where it just takes a lot of time. And I wish we could do more stuff without consultants, but that's just the way the work is right now. So yeah, some of the things we've used consultant support on includes like helping us write grant applications for those large federal grants. There's a lot of regulations and like cost benefit analysis that goes into it. And so, consultants just have more expertise in how to prepare that and prepare successful applications. We have a consultant helping us with our strategic plan. So we kind of data dumped everything that, what this program was trying to accomplish, and they've helped us organize it and figure out a good way to manage it, and figure out our workflow and workload, and help facilitate some of those stakeholder conversations. We have a consultant helping us with that annual crash report as well. So they're helping do some of that more intense crash analysis, and then putting the plan, like a pretty plan for us together for us. So yeah, a lot of it is just, if we feel like we need help or don't have time, we can hire consultants to help us, but we're still involved throughout the entire process.
I'll also say, to the extent that a process needs a high degree of public engagement, that also entails more time, not just in the planning and the assembling and the facilitating of the dialogue, but it also generates a lot more qualitative data that then has to be processed, in addition to what you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that is one thing I think, last year with the, kind of creation of Safer Streets, is we were trying to get a lot of stuff out. And so there wasn't as much time, I guess, for public engagement. And so this year we really want to step up public engagement. That's a really important piece of planning, and making sure that we get community buy-in, to help, without community buy-in, people can come to council with pitchforks and this program can end. And so we have to get everyone on board to really make this successful and sustainable long term. So yeah.
One more question. So, although you're not turning a lot of your pilot programs into permanent ones because you didn't see the results that you were hoping to see, but is there any thought that those results weren't seen because the temporary options just don't compare to the more permanent ones?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think that's something that we're wanting to look at. I think this year we're trying to test out some new materials. So, like one of the traffic calming features that we find really successful, um, I guess with traffic calming in general, what we have found that really slows drivers down is that there has to be some type of either vertical or horizontal deflection, meaning you have to either, um, you know, shift lanes or shift somehow. You can't just go straight, or you have to go over something vertical in the roadway. So, like the raised pedestrian crossings downtown, along Main and Alamo and Prince, are a really effective traffic calming feature. And we hadn't found a great material to pilot that with, because to do the full on design, you have to account for drainage and then the construction. It just ends up costing like a couple $100,000, which, with a limited budget of $1 million, you just can't do a lot of you could do a couple of those projects and that would take up your whole budget. So it's also balancing like how much can we do for in the quick build materials and how much can we do for a permanent installation. But we feel like we found a company where we could pilot a raised pedestrian crossing. And so we're hoping, we can pilot that at some of these crossing locations. And then if it is showing, the speed reduction that we're hoping for, then, we can look at making those permanent.
So I guess my question is, why do you need to pilot it if you're seeing it in multiple locations? Like I can think of several, downtown Littleton, on Prince, there's a couple more where you see it working. I guess my concern is there's a lot of money being put towards pilot programs and like your budget from last year has decreased. So if you're on this pathway and we're not seeing the results you're wanting to see and taxpayers aren't seeing the results they want to see, at what point are should more money be going to doing less permanent options that are really working for the community instead of doing a lot of pilot programs that maybe make people feel good, like you see them everywhere, but they're not actually benefiting anybody outside of that.
Yeah. No, you make a really good point. And I think that's something as a program, we're going to have that conversation. Because you're right. I mean, I think for what we can fund with the pilots is much less what you can fund permanent, but we're also seeing it with maintenance of the pilots is not, it exists. And especially if, delineators are getting hit and they have to go and be replaced. What's that trade-off? Is a permanent installation overall less maintenance, and so long-term less time and money being spent on maintaining it, a better fiscal investment. So that is something we are definitely looking at this year to implement next year, and figuring out maybe what other funding sources could we look at to make these permanent installations, along with a Safer Streets budget.
Feels like one of the basic questions, are we gonna remove the pilots that don't seem to be working?
Yeah.
And I think for Mackenzie's question about, what things look like, the project on Euclid is gonna be our kind of test garden for what things are gonna look like if we put in permanent stuff. And that's it's gonna really not be a huge piece of street. It's only gonna be a couple blocks. But I think in my mind, that's our test of what permanent would look like on our neighborhood streets.
And I guess my recommendation there would be to include something other than concrete, whether it's stamped or not, if you can have some trees or some more, I know it's more expensive, but it's a huge investment already. And it's a long-term one, right? It's very permanent. It's gonna like affect the value of homes in Littleton and whether or not people are buying on that street, wanna live on that street. It's just such a long-term thing. I think it.
There's a tension, I think we're actually, trees are the last thing we wanna put in because they block people's views. In fact, the traffic circles that we have that have trees in them probably would be better off if they were just flat.
What views?
People-
Of the
people
street?
See pedestrians, so you don't run into them.
Safety visit.
Oh, safety views. Okay.
Yeah, like visibility, site visibility.
But I mean, you could do grasses or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I think, so for Euclid, yeah, we don't have in our current design, we don't have any like landscaping area or buffer, but the Cadillac version of sidewalks is definitely to have like a detached sidewalk with a nice landscaping area and trees and whatnot. Euclid specifically, we ran into right-of-way issues of trying to accommodate as much safety improvements for all modes within our current right-of-way, because once you start having to buy right-of-way, it gets really, really expensive and much a longer process. And so that didn't really fit in that project. But I think Elottie is a great example of where, anything's really an option at this point, and we have more right-of-way to work with. And the plan for Elottie too is to really go through this corridor planning process and then figure out what would the permanent installation be, and then we can start making those, take the pilot projects that are currently out there and make them permanent once we, have a vetted public process and really know what the long-term vision for that corridor is going to be.
Yeah. Well, and I personally, when, I don't know, you're in neighborhoods where they do have that vegetative space, I think drivers are much less likely to drive into that than they are over a bump or,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously a concrete barrier is a different story, but not very pretty to look at.
Yeah, no, I hear you loud and clear, and I'll definitely take this back to the team. I think, yeah, these are some really interesting questions that we need to address. So absolutely.
And I love the traffic garden ideas. I think that's smart.
Yeah, or was that? Yeah, we're really excited for these. I think it's going to turn out super well and be a really great asset for the community. And yeah, so the idea is that, there'll probably be like a shed there with some of these signs, but people can come out and use these whenever, like they're on public property. And so, weekends or evenings, or, maybe even include it in school curriculum potentially. So we're really excited.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Does anyone else have any questions for Kenneth or comments? Thank you again for your time, Kenneth. We really appreciate you hopping on a Zoom call and running us through everything.
Yeah, no, thank you again for your flexibility and letting me Zoom in. I very much appreciate it. So
We still want to see the cat.
I know, sorry. I'll next time.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. And if you have any follow-up questions, please just let me know. Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you.
Awesome. I think that is the last topic for our discussion topics for this evening. So we can move on to our comments and reports. Does anyone from the staff have any comments or reports to make?
No comments or reports. I will say that I'm glad that last year, you guys, I think you guys have at minimum figured out how to start moving towards making progress towards meeting those objectives. So it's definitely been a productive year in that regard. I've had its fair share of like stall moments, like, darn, that didn't go the way we wanted to. But I think you guys are definitely getting better at figuring out how to get stuff done, which is ultimately the very broad goal of respect to the demographic. So I'm excited about the 2025 board. That's all I'll say.
Awesome, thank you. Does our council liaison have any comments or report?
I was gonna tell you guys the names of the people we selected, so you would know who's coming. Of course, I'm logged out of my computer for a second. No. So we selected four, we selected four people for this group to start next week. Their names are Michael Sizek, and he is hold on. Works in commercial real estate. Then we selected Jeremiah Guy Williams. He's works at DaVita, and I think he's an analyst there. Bobby Thomas, he's a data analyst, and then a woman named Samantha Wilbur, and I think she works for the Highline Canal Conservancy. So those are the people that select. I feel like we have a really good group, and I'm excited. I'm excited to work with them. I look forward to you guys helping them move forward. And you know, the other thing I want to say is the most innovative things that came out of that group, just this is my reflection, is because we've got a staff that's very excited about this work. Like as a leader in this organization, I feel like we've got to the place where we have an energized and excited staff, and they're coming back with these exciting ideas to do. And I'm just thankful that we've got people like that. But I would also say a lot of the ideas that you see up there are ideas that the TMB put in front of the staff. And, you know, who knows whether it starts at the TMB and went to the staff or went to the staff. But it shows for me as kind of a liaison where the boards and commissions can have impacts on things. And I think, you know, for those of you guys who that still be around, you know, getting your voice in there, even Mackenzie's questions, you know, kind of is going to take those back. I think it is important. So I appreciate you guys engaging. Chocolate on your way.
Thank you, Robert. Moving on to the actual board comments and reports. I'll just reiterate that I'm moving. I still live in Littleton. If you want to text me, call me, need an email for support, and or I'm excited to see what other Adulting 101 seminars y'all come up with, because I'll definitely be at them. That's just really my reflections, and thank you for letting me be the leader for the last year. It's been an honor and a pleasure, so I appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew.
You've done a great job.
Thank you. And with that, I was like, if anyone else has any comments or reports, I'll open it up. If not, we can adjourn.
I'll just say thank you for your grace, everyone, this year, because I have not been very present. When I agreed to a second term, I did not know I was gonna have to go back full time to work. So I am a working stay-at-home mom, so I've made it when I could, but I do apologize that I haven't contributed as much, especially in this last year. But I did it for 4 years and I learned a lot. I've seen different iterations of this group, and so it's been really cool to see it evolve. And I know I have a lot of hope that you guys are gonna do great things in 2025. And same with Andrew, you know, I'm around, I live over here. I literally go to Bemis almost every day. So I'm always at Littleton's events. So I'm around, say hi. I hope to still engage in some of these events that y'all are doing. And yeah, I just love that we live in a city that has a next gen board. I think that's an incredible resource, and a lot of cities don't prioritize young forces like ours does. So I think that's a gift that we should use. So thanks for continuing to be here and serve.
Well, that's everything. We can call it a wrap for the night. I'll adjourn our meeting. Anyone wants more of these?